Now, the Russian war in Ukraine, as we said, is more than 2 months old now. It still shows no signs of letting up or easing. And as we have dealt with in previous episodes of Worldview, India's position has been fairly clear, and it's been repeated in Parliament as well. To begin with, India has continued to abstain at all United Nations and multilateral votes that criticize Russia, in fact, abstain from a vote brought about by Russia. It's also refused to join sanctions by more than 30 countries, including the US, EU, even India's Quad partners, Australia, Japan, and others. Third, it has increased its intake of Russian oil over the last 2 months, despite the US ban, despite the European calls to cut Russian imports. Fourth, India has discussed with Russia how to build payment mechanisms that subvert or circumvent the sanctions so as to what it calls stabilizes its economic engagement with Russia. And at the same time, India has also continued to call for diplomacy and dialogue, the need to respect sovereignty, and for an immediate end to hostilities. So is this a balancing act? Is this some kind of non-alignment already?
So looking into the present scenario, we can say that there are questions that whether India is trying to bring back the NAM, that is a non-aligned movement, whether the government in present day India is trying to bring back the policies of this particular foreign policy. And there are also questions that whether NAM is a relic of the Cold War, and does it has any relevance in present day context. So if you have to answer this particular questions, then definitely you need to know what is NAM, that is a non-aligned movement, and you also need to know what was the significance in India's foreign policy and the international geopolitics. Basically, when we talk about NAM, the non-aligned countries which were there, favoring this particular policy, their prime objectives were that they did not want to be at par with any of the superpowers after the Cold War. So basically, they thought that they will rely on, prime ideas like self the interdependence, national independence. They also thought that they will rely on sovereignty and also territorial integrity. So from India's perspective, if I have to tell you, then basically non-aligned movement is a signature idea of India's foreign policy. We can't deny the fact that it is like an identity of India's foreign policy. This particular NAM policy was a brainchild of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. However, Pandit Nehru, denied the fact that he is the creator of this particular policy. He opined that India's foreign policy, that is non-aligned movement, is a product of India's culture and India's tradition. However, the Western states or the Western countries have often misunderstood India's non-alignment. They have said that India's non-aligned movement is related with this particular words, that is isolationism and neutrality. But being, independent does not mean that India is practicing isolationism. So we can say that India is not tilted to either the US or the USSR, but it is trying to maintain its own integrity and sovereignty. So if we see the significance of non-aligned movement in present day context, we will understand that whether this particular policy, which was basically a construct of the Cold War, has relevance in present day context. The basic principles which India highlighted for its foreign policy, that is a non-aligned foreign policy, can be highlighted as number 1, mutual non-aggression, then mutual non-interference in domestic affairs, equality and mutual benefit, peaceful coexistence, and the last one is mutual respect for each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty. So we can say that India did not oblige to be a partner of either the US and the USSR totally, but definitely it said that it will contribute its assistance in maintaining the global order and also maintaining the peace and harmony in the. No doubt, India did not oblige to get any military alliance during the Cold War or in present geopolitical order, yet the statement that whether non-alignment is relevant in present day context is quite questionable, because just like the stage was set during the Cold War for this particular policy to come up, similarly during the COVID-19 pandemic, a stage was set to revive the non-alignment policy, and therefore the Indian government has come up with NAM 2.0. So if you look back and see the global scenario during COVID-19 pandemic, you will see that no country was 100% independent enough to control that particular pandemic. They have to go for cooperation, they have to go for interdependence, and therefore we cannot say that NAM, which was a Cold War construct, is irrelevant, but definitely NAM can be revived in present day context. That means we don't need to be tilted to either the US or the USSR, but NAM as a foreign policy for India can be revived in a new style in the global politics and to maintain peace and harmony in the global order. So if we see the necessity, or if we see the significance of this particular foreign policy in the perspective of India, then we can say that yes, NAM policy is important for India because thus it can support India's candidature for the United Nations Security Council, because the total strength of NAM is like 120 developing countries are there who are basically the members of the United Nations General Assembly, and they can vote in favor for India's candidature in the United Nations Security Council, which India has been demanding for ages. Secondly, we can say that India's engagement with this particular foreign policy, that is NAM, will further help in the rise of India's stature as a voice of the developing world or the global south. Then at last, when the whole world order is fighting to maintain itself as a superpower, then this particular NAM policy can highlight India as a major pole, that is strengthening the multipolar world order. So NAM can support, or NAM can highlight its importance in these particular perspectives. Those who say that NAM is a relic of Cold War must also acknowledge the fact that a new Cold War is trying to unfold. In today's scenario, the trade wars between US and China, then the different trade wars going on in the geopolitical order, the naval presences of various countries, then the Quad initiative, the Indo-Pacific narrative, then also the Belt and Road Initiative of China, in which it is going on building up roads interconnecting different countries, and also giving up loans to Africa, Sri Lanka and many other parts of Asia, in which many diplomats and many people are saying that it is the coming up of neo-colonialism. So in this particular context, this NAM foreign policy can establish the ethos of collective action. So we cannot say that entirely the relevance of NAM has been diminishing or has been removed, but definitely NAM has never got the credit which it deserves. Despite the weakness of NAM, yet it has always proved itself as a soft balancing mechanism. So in present day context, if the question arises that whether NAM must be revived and whether its revival is necessary, then yes, we can say that it should be revived, because in present day geopolitical order, the big powers are going on for a new arm race. There is militarization of oceans. There is also tensions which are spiraling in hot waters, and ultimately the developing countries will be the worst affected. And therefore India's foreign policy, which is often connoted that it was a relic of Cold War or a Cold War construct, cannot be denied that it is a relic. But yes, it has its relevance till today, and India should maintain its foreign policy in a non-aligned manner. We can say that yes, India has tried to maintain its world order, not in an isolationistic manner, but definitely it has also coordinated its assistance with other countries to maintain the peace and harmony in the world order. So I hope that you like this particular topic and you have understood it, and if you want to know more about such topics, then stay tuned with our channel, and if you like our videos, then do share, comment and subscribe. Thank you.